For decades, Al Roker has been the steady, smiling presence viewers rely on every morning. His humor, warmth, and resilient spirit have helped millions start their days with lightness. But as many longtime fans know, Al has also learned, sometimes the hard way, that even the most upbeat, hard-working person must stop and face the realities of aging and health. This story begins with something deceptively simple: a routine checkup. Al has always been diligent about his yearly appointments, not because he enjoys them, but because he knows the importance of staying ahead of health concerns. As he often said, you can't forecast life's storms, but you can prepare for them. Yet, even with that mindset, nothing prepared him for what came next. It started as a standard visit: blood work, blood pressure, a few screening questions, nothing unusual. Al joked with the nurse, chatted with his doctor, and expected to walk out with reassurance that everything was normal. But this time, the doctor's tone shifted. He didn't sound alarmed, but he did sound cautious. "Al," he said gently, "some of your numbers are trending in a direction we need to pay attention to." Al felt a subtle jolt in his chest, not pain, but worry, the kind of worry anyone over 60 understands too well. The doctor emphasized that nothing was urgent, but additional tests were needed soon. When Al returned home, his wife Deborah immediately sensed something was off. She had known him long enough to read the smallest cues: the way he set down his keys a little too slowly, the slight distance in his eyes, the forced brightness in his voice as he said, "Everything's fine." But it wasn't fine. That night, after dinner, Deborah encouraged him to talk. Not with pressure, just presence. And when Al finally opened up, he admitted that the follow-up tests frightened him more than he wanted to admit. For someone who had always powered through life's challenges with optimism, acknowledging fear was new. But Deborah listened, her hand over his, reminding him that facing uncertainty didn't mean facing it alone. The next week, Al returned for more detailed evaluations. As he sat in the quiet waiting room, away from cameras, lights, and laughter, he felt more vulnerable than he had in years. Around him, people of all ages waited in the same silence, each carrying their own fears, their own unknowns. When his doctor came back with the results, he chose his words carefully. "Al, some changes in your health need attention. They're not an emergency, but they are serious enough that ignoring them isn't an option." It wasn't life-threatening, it wasn't catastrophic, but it was a turning point, a wake-up call that shook him more deeply than he expected. The doctor explained the importance of adjustments, slowing his pace, reworking his schedule, monitoring certain markers closely, and prioritizing rest, not occasionally, but consistently. For a man whose life had been defined by early mornings, constant travel, charity events, and a relentless desire to show up for others, the idea of slowing down felt almost impossible. Driving home with Deborah, the weight of the news settled quietly between them. She reached over and squeezed his hand. "You're allowed to take care of yourself, Al. You've spent years taking care of everyone else." It was a simple sentence, but it unlocked something inside him. Over the next few weeks, Al made changes, real changes. He paused some commitments, took time away from the spotlight, and began speaking openly, at least with close friends and family, about the importance of paying attention to routine checkups, especially as the years add up. His children noticed the shift too. He was more present during family dinners. He rested without guilt. He laughed a little more, breathed a little deeper, and allowed himself to embrace the slower rhythm his body had been quietly asking for. Colleagues who had spent decades working alongside him noticed a softness, a new mindfulness in the way he moved through the world. Not weaker, just wiser. For many viewers, especially those in their 60s and older, Al's journey mirrors their own. The moment when a routine medical appointment suddenly feels heavier, the fear that creeps in when a doctor's tone changes, the realization that health is something not to postpone. And yet, Al's story is not of crisis, it is one of clarity. It reminds us that wake-up calls do not exist to scare us, but to guide us. They're invitations to slow down, reevaluate, and care more deeply for the body that has carried us through decades of living. Al often says now, with a gentle smile, the forecast is still bright, just with a little more caution. It's a reminder that life's storms can be weathered, especially when we choose not to ignore the early signs.